Good evening. Good night. Oh. No, I'm good. I might need a nap. What's up, everyone? Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying.
Bobby, I mean, what was the trade deadline like from your point of view? Were you kind of hopeful something bigger might happen, or kind of just happy you got sort of the I's dotted and T's crossed?
Yeah, no, I think we, accomplished the objectives, right? We needed to get into the tax. We were looking for some front court help. So I think, we try to get our work done early, Monday, Tuesday. Obviously, last night, I think the Trace thing, but we've been working on it for a while. Yeah, I mean, we had some fun. There were some, you know, bigger deals, but I think at this point, for this group, we didn't want to chase. You don't want to get in a situation where you felt like you were not necessarily overpaying, but we're still on the upward climb. I think. What are we 2/3 into the season? Pretty positive. Start here. More than a start. The group's coming together. There will be a time where we're gonna push in and consolidate and add some picks, but we just felt the prices at this point were a bit high for us.
Did that include like deals for shooters too, or was it more like a big and the tax were more priorities?
Oh no, I think sort of the upper tier players. So, I don't think we're at a point where we can be too specific about skill sets. I think we're still trying to get really good players and add them to the group, and so always in the mix. I think we set ourselves up by not trading a ton of picks and having young players in different different contracts, so we can sort of be in the mix for most of these. But at the same time, you don't want to feel like you're overextending yourself and maybe putting too many chips in this early in the rebuild for the group.
Were you surprised by what went on around the league? And it was supposed to be hard to make trades because of aprons and it doesn't seem to be true.
I think that's for the people who don't like aprons, but no, I think we've seen the last year and a half, like massive deals, right? Superstars traded both ways, and I think a lot of smart people, and we employ a lot of them now to think about how to strategically make deals and work within the rules. I think we've had a couple years here with the new CPA, so I think now people are much more facile with it. When the new rules came out, I think people weren't as sort of adept at manipulating them or using them, but now I think people understand how to do deals. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with Trace, is it someone that you were really interested in his draft year? Is it a long term sort of thing, or what kind of like?
Yeah, I spoke to him yesterday. I told him I think the first time I saw him was down in St. Catharines. There's like a USA tournament down there. It was Kobe White was on the team. Quentin Grimes was a pretty good USA team. I think it might have been FIBA's. You guys can look it up. And I said, yeah. And so it was. That was the first time I watched him. Then obviously, great pedigree with his dad, Indiana, Golden State. So I think that was something we've always had our eye on. I think probably timing matters too. We've called on him in the past, and then with Golden State yesterday getting another big man, I think it sort of was a time for him to become free. And so we knew when we when we did the Ochai deal, we would have the ability on Wednesday to look at some of these guys. And so we didn't have a lot of money to spend, but sort of anyone under $3 million we could look at and bring them in. And so Trace quickly rose to the top of that list, and fortunately the timing worked.
Obviously, there are some pretty high-profile bigs available. Some of them moved, some of them didn't. Are you? Darko talked about it a bit before the game, but are you confident that Yak is going to be available down the stretch here?
Yeah, we've always been confident that Yak's going to be available. I say it's tough if no one in here is 7 foot with a sore back, so I think it's tough to sort of put yourself in issues. But no, we've always felt confident. Obviously, we've known Yak for a while. We drafted him, we traded back for him. So, we're excited. Obviously, things can change as he ramps up again here. But no, we're confident, and we think he'll be a good addition.
How important was it while addressing the front court depth to not infringe on Collins' development path?
Yeah, that's huge. The silver lining of the Yak injury has been Colin in so many different ways, right? I think, coming out of college, I think would it translate? By all means, it's translated for sure on the defensive end. The strengths there. Obviously, he's not 7 foot, but for sure it's been a great surprise for us to see him this quickly, even tonight I was talking to someone. It's like he just sort of fits. He's normal. He stands out in the ways he does stand out. He stands out in the ways he's a rookie, but I don't know. I think he played like 19 minutes in the first half, right? And for a rookie, I think that just being able to have the confidence from coach and from the other players to put him out there, I think is big.
What message would you give to fans who are expecting big trades?
Yeah, be patient. We don't need to be in a hurry. I think people forget, maybe think back to what your expectations were coming into the year, and so we've had a lot of positives. Brandon's been great. Scotty's been great. The whole starting unit, RJ and Quickly, and we talked about what the bench mob could be, but that group coming off the bench has been really impressive, and so. For those of you around the team, I think there's a great energy and there's a great vibe, and so you don't necessarily want to mess with that as well. And so, there's going to be hard evaluations here. This is the hardest part of the season. This is when the brights are the lightest. We've seen this in the past couple of games. We'll see it. If we're fortunate enough to be in the play-in or playoff games, is you'll get more evaluation. And so, I think probably some of those tougher decisions will come this summer.
Another thing with Chris Paul.
What's that?
You talked to Chris Paul and come to an agreement to waive him or.
Yeah, we spoke to the agent yesterday, and I don't know what he's going to do. I just said, listen, Chris Paul is probably one of my favorite players ever, and so it's a weird thing to trade for him, and then he's at this point in his career. So I said, whatever, we want to be the most professional, and so we'll waive him here at the appropriate time.
RJ's name came up a lot in the trade rumor mill. Obviously, he's still young, and he kind of fits the timeline of the team. But do you guys see RJ as a long-term fit with this current group?
Yeah, I think that's what you started out was a rumor mill, and I think it's great for the league, it's great for exposure, it's great for all of us to be part of it. But I think what's the best way? I think everyone talks amongst themselves, and I think that creates a lot of it. But I stay in communication with him, his agent, even in the case of Yak, and so I think they all know that unless they hear from us or hears from us personally, that they don't need to worry about all the rumors. As far as RJ, I think he's had a little bit of injury, bad luck this year. When he's been on the court, we win. I think when he's been on the court, he provides dynamic scoring for them. But listen, we're going to have to win at the highest level. We're going to have to win down here, make it to the playoffs. We're going to have to win in the playoffs. And I think that's what we wanted to do with this group, is see what this group can do the last third of the season, hopefully make some noise in the postseason, and then we can sort of collect ourselves at the end of the year.
When you look at a lot of the splash deals that went down, expiring money seems to be, more important. It wasn't all that long ago that having guys under sort of comfortable team control was something of more value. Are you still comfortable with kind of the term you have out on a guy like Quickly and Jakob? As just with the way the dynamic of the market shifted a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a little overblown. I think sometimes, I think our payroll is very average. I think we're right in the middle of where we are, just after the Ochai deal. So I think sometimes the absolute dollars people have a little bit of sticker shock, but I think it's all relative to what other players are getting paid, and sort of, if you have someone in the NBA making 60 or 70 million, you kind of have to adjust your terms according to that. As far as deals, I think that's why that Bruce Brown contract was so, intriguing. This may be the first deadline in a while. We haven't had one of those to sort of at least entice teams or put out there. Ochai was $6 million. We were up against the tax, so probably that hurt us a bit. But we didn't have a nice $15 or $20 million expiring. But that's what helped us to get BI, and that's what's helped us over the years to get some of these trades. And so maybe we should give some guys 1-year deals just to have them on the trade block.
Thanks very much, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.